Right, again, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. Welcome to the Economic Summit 2025. Again, like I said, put together by iTele Media. And today we're going to be having conversations surrounding the theme navigating the fiscal landscape in Nigeria, which is a very, very pertinent subject and timely subject to be talking about at this time in the history of Nigeria. And we have really experienced guests from the space, and we'll be delving into different facets of this particular theme. So I would really like to ask that you pay as much attention to the conversations today. It is not going to be something you get to see everywhere. Again, like I said, my name is Chioma Otie, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. And it's such a pleasure to have finance professionals and people that work in business generally here today. So today's conversation, we're going to be exploring very critical areas that every chief financial officer or finance practitioner, tax consultant, and business owner should be thinking about. And particularly, I'm referring to strategies for reducing regulatory risks, AI-powered auditing, and smart tax planning in Nigeria's dynamic economic environment. So these are the conversations we're going to be having, and we already have a very beautifully curated array of guests who are going to be unpacking all of these very interesting subjects. So just a bit of housekeeping or ground rules before we jump right into it. Please, if you are not speaking, I'd like to ask that you please keep your mic off so that we do not get noise or glitches or reverberations from your end as well. And I just wanted to mention that sadly, we couldn't have one of our speakers join us today. We're supposed to have 3 speakers, but we're just going to be having 2. She's unavoidably absent for very, very important reasons. So we will be having a conversation with 2 gentlemen today. And with that being said, there's going to be an opportunity for questions and answers. So if you have questions, I would like to ask also that you probably note them down on your notepad so that once it is time for that section, we have that by either having you put them on the chat or you use the mic to say your questions or ask your questions. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce our first distinguished speaker for today, and he is, I don't know if I see him on this call already, but that is supposed to be Mr. Godwin Adoga. Please, sir, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you so much. You can't see my face because I don't know, my mic isn't connecting to my camera, but yeah, I'm right here. Thank you.
Oh, that's sad. I would have loved to see your face. We would have loved to see your face because we would have connected more. But that shouldn't be an issue. We'll still get the best out of your session regardless. So thank you very much for being here again and for being here early. So a bit about Mr. Godwin Adoga. He is okay, so Mr. Godwin Adoga, who has over a decade of experience analyzing African markets and advising firms on economic policy, is one of our guests today. He is really experienced in the world of finance and economy, if I may say. And today he'll be focusing on strategies to reduce regulatory risks and collaborating with tax authorities for seamless audits. So I'm going to take this again so that you get the full scope of what this conversation is going to be about in a bit. Okay, so he's going to be talking again about strategies to reduce regulatory risks and collaborating with tax authorities for seamless audits. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put your virtual hands together and with so much virtual cheers, join me as I welcome Mr. Godwin Adoga for his presentation. The floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Chioma Talks. I want to say a big thank you to you all. Yeah, I can see the claps. I can see the virtual claps. If you are not clapping for me, you are my enemy. Okay.
Don't mind them.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like a celebrity. I wish I could put my microphone, my camera on, but well, God has a plan for everything. Okay. So we're speaking about, regulatory risk and how to reduce that, and of course, how to collaborate with authorities for seamless audits. Of course, tax authorities, regulatory authorities, authorities that require audit. But before we talk about that, let us basically explain what regulatory risk kind of implies. I believe I think when I was introduced to this subject, I believe the target audience is people who are in finance, people who have concerns about finance, stakeholders in finance, CFOs of companies, people who have stakes in businesses and companies, people who basically have equity and are interested in, protecting their position within the ecosystem of the general business market. And because of that, we'd like to dive in and speak about that. So I want to ask Choma, how many minutes do I have so that I'll know how to cut my session and know which area to focus on? How many minutes do I have?
Choma, I think you're mute. You're mute.
Pardon me again. I'm so sorry. So I think you have about 20 minutes for your presentation and 10 minutes for questions and answers. And I'm being notified that we have another speaker. Please give me a second, Dr. Adejobi Adeloye. I'm so sorry, sir. I saw your camera on earlier, but I thought you were a participant. Apologies, and it's good to have you here and have you early. So yes, 30 minutes in total, 20 minutes for your presentation, and then 10 minutes for questions and answers. And that goes for all of the speakers. You can go on now. Thank you.
All right. All right. So let's go with what regulatory risk actually entails. Regulatory risk is basically the risk of penalties, fines, or anything that can actually cause a disruption due to not being able to comply with rules. And most of these rules are set up by the government. Some of these rules go in the line of licensing, labor, things like environmental responsibilities, and of course, tax responsibilities. You have to pay taxes for some things. You have to do licensing to be able to be allowed to do some things. And you have to take care of the environment, perhaps even your employees. I remember last week, I received a bill from Abuja Municipal Area Council, and the bill was for 200,000 naira. And I asked what it was for, and they said it was for fumigation and what's it called? Fumigation and habitation, something. They just made up something. And I asked why and when this started. And I said, oh, it's just a new law they passed in, at the local government level. Now that has become a law. We're not informed about it. There was no circular, but now it has been passed and it's a bylaw. And now we have to accept it and even pay those fines. Of course, anybody can go to court and argue it, but as a business person, your first responsibility or your first interest is to make money, to generate revenue, and to create value, that can actually hold a customer and keep them for a long time. Now, because of that, we are, in that regard, you try to avoid the risk of getting shut down because those letters from AMAC, those bills didn't just come, with a suggestion. They came with a consequence. And the consequence was that if we didn't pay that 200K, right, we would receive an order from court to pay a bigger fine, which would disrupt our revenue, or we could even get shut down. And we don't want that. So how do you navigate this? In Nigeria's evolving business environment, the truth is that risk continues to increase. And the reason why risk continues to increase is because, well, we always have changing tax policies. Every new government comes in with a new, tax policy. You already know about what's happening within the political environment. I don't want to go into that, but obviously, you know about the new tax reform, the President Tinubu's tax reform, which I actually like. But a lot of governors don't like it because it kind of shifts the way revenue is generated in their state, shifts the way revenue is retained. It shifts the way people make money. As you know, at the government level, and a lot of people don't like it. But those changing tax policies create risk for people who have established their businesses and rely on some of these loopholes to continue making a certain type of range of revenue. Of course, we also have the risk of changing levels of enforcement, changing levels of I wouldn't say changing personnel, but changing interests of enforcement. We all have to agree that in Nigeria, I believe I'm also speaking about Nigeria. In Nigeria, the person enforcing the policy actually matters, because many times some of the things they do are open to interpretation. Of course, the law is clear, the policies are clear, the codes are clear and everything, but sometimes as business people, we negotiate our way out of some things. And if we're unable to negotiate, it actually presents a risk. And of course, risk also increases in Nigeria due to just poor records of stuff. We just don't have a lot of digitalization of records, and this is one of the reasons why I'm actually a very big proponent of cryptocurrency. I'm a very big proponent of not cryptocurrency, blockchain. I'm a good proponent of digitalization of registries, records, and everything that have to do with numbers and data. Okay, so now that we know what regulatory risk is and how it actually affects the average person in business, the average stakeholder, what are the strategies to reduce these risks? One of the things I learned early in life when I started going to court to defend myself and my business, because you get sued by customers, you get sued by your landlord, you get sued by every person who has a problem with you. Sometimes they call police and all that. One of the things I learned is ignorance is not an excuse, right? So the first strategy to reduce it is not to eliminate it, but to reduce it is that you have to be informed. You have to be informed. Now, the truth is, it's not easy to be informed when you actually look at it from the outside, because many of our institutions rely on our ignorance to be able to generate revenue. And I remember also we set up the company and someone told me that, why do you need this tax thing? You can just open a corporate account. The bank will not ask for it. So to us, to a young businessman, then it was just like, oh, we just set up a company and you need a tax ID to open an account. That's why we needed it. We didn't know that you actually needed the tax, to register the tax and actually get tracked and pay your taxes to be able to remain compliant. And people were doing it. So we just thought, well, nobody needed this thing. So we just kept it. It was just one of those bureaucracies. It came back to bite me after about 7 years. And I'll explain how it came back to bite me, because I didn't go to FIRS in the beginning. We didn't have a tax number. We just kept using the account like that. Eventually somebody said, just do this thing. I paid someone in the bank. They just created the tax number for us, and we just kept it for the purpose of filling forms everywhere. We won a grant, right? My company won a grant. First, it was 5 million naira, and then the grant was given to us, but it wasn't paid. It was paid into our account, and it was kept on lien, right? Because we were processing another loan with the same bank. And eventually we qualified for that loan, and the loan was for 50 million naira. But we couldn't get the loan. Why? Tax. When we actually, got to the point of due diligence, and they were asking for our tax return for 3 years. I didn't know what that was. Like, what? You have been owing tax. And I said, we actually, did this and did that. And no, it's not an excuse. You have to go and do and declare and do all of that and bring your records and get a professional to do your taxes and all of that. We had to pay a heavy fine, very huge fine. That really affected our company's revenue. And if you remember, it's a loan we were taking, right? So the cost of money was even high. Thinking about the kind of inflation we're experiencing in Nigeria, cost of money was high, and we still have to pay this fine to continue, using our business, because it's not like you can just wake up and change the company because that company has casted. No, you have to continue using that company because that company has actually won a grant. That company now has responsibilities, has staff, has things to do, and is being tracked. So sometimes ignorance is a huge problem. You need to stay informed. Subscribe to FIRS updates, right? You can actually go to their website, even if it's not responsive, follow them on Facebook and read their circulars because you know you are the one that will pay at the end if you don't do the right thing. There's nothing even wrong even going to their office and getting one of their staff numbers and just calling them and checking on them and asking them to guide you through what you need to do to be safe in case, some of these things come up in future. I have a friend who met me and said, OG, please, I'm going to get a contract to deliver 1,000 pieces of, desks from Kaduna State government. And I said, oh, good job. Well done. Well, I'm really proud of you. I'm jealous of you as well. I wish I could get that contract. She said, no, bro, it's not like that. I actually, got a contract, but I can't get paid. I said, why? She said, I don't have a company that have the requirements they are looking for. And I said, what requirements? They said they want tax return for so and so years. And I said, have you not done it before? She said she has never tried anything, tax anything. I said, well, now you have to go and start. And she said, no, she can't start anymore because the company they are looking for is a company that has been paying their tax for 3 years. So she hasn't done that. She has to lose out. But I won't tell you what we did to be able to get her to get the deal. That's a story for another day.
So
and then, of course,
well,
I did not say that, but God has a way. Let me not say more than that. Thank you so much. So we have, a lot of ways to get, informed. But I know that it's not easy. But as a professional, it's your responsibility. It is your responsibility to follow them. If you follow them enough, you would know. And many of them are communicated in person. If you are a tax consultant, you will know what I'm talking about. If you've been in the industry, you know what I'm talking about. People will try to get your number and call you and say, bro, please, can you do this thing for us? Our company is doing this. Most people approach you as a professional when they already have problem. But it is important for you as a stakeholder to approach before you have the problem so that you don't get sucked into paying fines. And the fines, they are like rain. If it is about to fall, it must fall. In fact, you that you don't pay your tax, they are in love with you because they are waiting for you to write in. I went to their office one day and they told us that sometimes they just used to look, they have a record of companies that are overdue for tax and they're just looking at the size of their revenue and they're tracking it with, I think they have a tool to track it with CDN, right? And they just target them and they just send you a letter and I said, you know what, you've not paid your tax for so and so years. This is your fine. We're coming to see you. And they have regulatory power to take action on your company. Why wait for that time? Someone told me that if you haven't crossed the revenue of 100 to 1 billion, they won't be looking for you. Why wait till you cross that revenue? Because by the time you cross that revenue, your fine would also be as high. Your obligation or your responsibility or your losses would also be as high. Your liabilities will also be as much. So now that is what I would say. Number one, to reduce the risk. Number two is to hire or outsource people that are in compliance. The reason why people go to school to actually study this fields is because they can actually help you do the job. If you can't treat yourself as someone who is maybe ill because maybe you've tried self-medication or traditional medicine or all of that, you can't really get the right diagnosis for your problem. You go to a doctor, and the doctor probably just knows, oh, this one is not malaria, this one is typhoid. They have the tools to check whether you're having Ebola or HIV, right? And you get a better diagnosis, you get a better set of drugs and all of that. So you can hire a good compliance person. Sometimes lawyers can know their way around it. Sometimes you actually have to get someone who is in tax, someone who is a consultant, someone who has been in accounting, someone who has worked with the government, who just be on your team. That's the reason why sometimes you see big companies like MTN, when they're hiring their CFO or their finance people, they go for people who had worked in banks. They go for people who had been CFOs in other places because they're not really looking for someone to do balance sheet or cash flow statements. That's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for junior analysts. They're looking for people who know how to call people to get them away from fines of hundreds of millions of dollars. You can see what's happened to Meta, right? With FCCCP, FCCPC rather, finding them for about $218 million. That's is it $218 million, $812 million? One of them, but it's a lot of money. That's like the whole budget of Benue State for a couple of years, and the company is saying they'll pull out because that's a lot of money to lose from just one region or just one country. Considering the fact that they may not be making that much money from that country annually, and sometimes the fines can be huge, and that's why people hire experts in this tax place to be able to avoid that. Similar thing happened with Paystack, where Paystack was actually fined. I think Paystack came up with a new product called Zap. Zap is like a payment product, so it's a new payment product, but there were regulatory issues with the name and the function. The first problem they had was that there was a company who is in payment who used that trademark Zap. They had that problem. They had to go to court. The second problem what they had was the licensing issue, which I spoke about. CBN said they are not licensed to do the functions. In fact, they were intending rather to carry out functionalities that are only reserved for people who have a certain type of license in microfinance or in banking. And they wanted to tech their way out of the problem. They wanted to technology there's a way you can technology your way out of things. And then the law will tell you that no, even if the tech can do it, the license to be allowed to do it must be given to you first before you can do it. And it's just like being the fastest man in your village. You may be the fastest man in the world because you can run the distance even faster than Usain Bolt. But unless you are accredited by the Olympics to run in that final race with the actual fastest men who are accredited, you don't get the title of the fastest man in the world. Even if you can actually beat the time in your village. So that regulatory risk also requires you knowing people or getting people on your team who know how to navigate it and who know the body language of the people enforcing the law or of the law itself. Then, of course, number three, to avoid risk is to digitize your record. What that means is basically to track your income, track your expenses, know how much you are supposed to be charged. And this is a problem in Nigeria where people are taxed arbitrarily. There's not multiple taxation in Nigeria. And multiple taxation is actually something that occurs when you are taxed many times on one income. So if you are taxed on different incomes, it's not multiple taxation, but it's like one income source and they are paying a lot of taxes on that income. That's multiple taxation. And it's happening a lot because they themselves don't keep the record. I'm sorry to say, but a lot of tax institutions in Nigeria don't keep the record. I'm saying this as someone who has been in the local government environment, in FCT here in Benue State in Lagos. The record keeping. There's a lot of templates being used. You just come around, look at your office and say, these people are making money. They have lights, they have generator, they have television, their staff are wearing coat and tie. Therefore, they should be paying 1 million to the local government for so and so. And you just pay. So it's like a fine at that point. It's supposed to be a tax. But if you keep your record, you'll be able to negotiate it. Like I always do. I'll say, this thing you put on this paper is not the amount we should be paying. This is how much we're making. You can see this, that. You are supposed to pay 20K instead of that 500K. And you can take it anywhere. Take me to the court. I will prove it. And with that, you'll be able to, keep your company healthier. Because you might say it's just 500,000. Let's just say, but your company can grow to a point where it can just become 500 million as well. So it's the same level of effort you put in when you have 1 kobo. It's the same level of effort you should put in when you have 10 million, because the knowledge doesn't really change. What changes is the size of the responsibility and the size of the liability you are managing. And of course, with record keeping, you have to do a lot of reviews internally. You just audit yourself before you get audited externally, so that you know where you are. My friend who is a tax consultant, he told me that, bro, there are 3 statements, there are 3 reports you give people. And I said, what do you mean? It's not one report everybody has. He said, which kind? He said, there's a report for yourself. That one is the one you tell yourself the truth. There's a report for your stakeholders, people who have invested in you, people who basically want to know, they're interested in your business. And then there's reports for regulator. And I said, okay, I don't want to know more than that because I can sense where you're going to, So it's also good to carry out those internal reviews. So How do you collaborate with authorities for seamless audits? This is one of the questions you ask. Collaboration. The truth is, collaboration is a big term, but collaboration actually means friendship building, relationship nurturing. A lot of people don't like law enforcement, and rightly so. Let's even start from, if you're in Abuja, you know that there's a group of people called VIO. If you drive around Abuja, I've not met anybody that likes VIO. They're not tax people. They're on the road to just hold your car. They will just find something wrong with your car. Say, this your windscreen is that expired. Show us the receipt of your windscreen, and then you start bragging. Maybe they are empowered by law to do that, but people don't like them. People just feel like they're a waste of time. People feel like they're being targeted because they won't stop a Prado Jeep with tinted glass that has no plate number. They will even hail the Prado Jeep and collect bribe and be going. But you that you are driving your boat looking for daily bread, they will stop you and waste your 2 hours, and they will collect, some fine that you don't know about from you. So relationship building matters. Just like people don't like those people. People don't like tax people. People don't like those people that come to the office for enforcement. People don't like seeing letters from FIRS. People don't like going to the bank and hear that they have a tax to pay. But if you are friends with these individuals, you would find a different side of them, the side of them that is human. And you're not doing this because you actually want to be friends with them. You're doing this because you want to protect yourself. A stitch in time saves 9. You have to treat these regulators like your partners, not your enemies, because everybody has an interest in this thing. What is their interest? To tax you. What is your interest? Do not get taxed as much as they want to tax you. So if you partner with them, you will find loopholes, because at the same time, they are looking for scapegoats. You are looking not to be a scapegoat. So if you partner with them in terms of sharing information, being early, being on time, I'm not saying you should bribe them, but just being early, being on time, because of course they like people that are, of course they want to, be on top of that situation and just make sure that scapegoats are not going scot-free. But at the same time, they also want people to comply. They want people who will do the right thing at the right time before they even ask. They love a good customer. There's no business person that doesn't like a good customer. So that show of good faith is something that can help you build relationships. I've been in situations where people just, I go to the office and they are talking about tax, and I'm like, no, what do you pay? For January 30th, they've done their work. And I'm like, yeah, that's the kind of report I want to see. It shows good faith. And of course, if you build that kind of relationship, it helps you to get contacts easily. It helps you to find out what's happening easily. Like, there are people who are selling. There are people in Kano State right now, and I was made aware of a conversation happening in Kano where many of the stakeholders in the entertainment industry, the nightlife industry, they're having meetings, regarding this thing with there's this thing.
Is it just me? I can't hear Mr. Godwin anymore. Can anyone still hear him? Can anyone hear me?
We cannot also hear him.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, so I think we lost him. Mr. Godwin, can you hear us? Because we can't hear you anymore. Maybe he's having some network glitches. Okay, seems like he has gone off. I don't see him here anymore. So well, we would have to go on. Hopefully he joins back soon. But that was a really insightful one, if you asked me. He made a lot of really concrete and insightful points, and I can't wait for him to come back because I have a couple of questions to ask him. But yes, like I said earlier as well, if you have questions that you would like to ask any of the speakers, please ensure to note them down so that you don't forget them. There'll be a session for questions and answers, and so you can get to convey your questions. I don't think he is still back yet. And if he is not, he was almost done with his presentation and he had just a few more minutes to go. But since he's not here, and I still can't see him. I think we'll just move on to the next speaker. And I don't know if anybody wants to maybe say a thing or to add to what he has said. Does anybody want to say anything before we jump right into the next speaker, so that we just buy a little more time before he joins back in? I'm guessing his network glitches. Does anybody want to say anything? Does anybody want to add, whether from the speakers or from the participants? Do you want to add anything to what he had just talked about taxes and collaborating with tax authorities?
Okay. Hi.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Emmanuel.
Hello. Yes.
You want?
Yes. My name is Emmanuel. My name is Emmanuel Aderito.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you very much for this session. It's a very impactful one indeed. Like the speaker was saying, taxes is one of the most simplest things, but the major things that gives taxpayer challenges is compliance issue, and our also tax authority are not helping matters, in the sense that some of them, the level of awareness that they are creating, thank God FRS is even trying compared to some other states. The state will be what they're just trying to do is to make you to fall prey of some deadlines without giving you notification. Like FCCRS also started now of a reason. They will notify you that the due date for the filing of your annual return for a personal or for payee tax returns is on or before 31st January of every year. They send you a notice. FRS also used to do same now these days, but some other states, in fact, when you even file, I've had an instance in which a particular company file the employees payee annual returns, but now file wrongly. Instead of him to file in year 2024 portal, he mistakenly filed in 2023 portal. And before you know it, in the following 10 days after the filing date, the tax authority just came with an order, with a court order, that the company should go and pay 500,000 naira for late filing. He has actually filed, but he filed wrongly. They put it there in the notice that you have filed, but you filed in year 2023 portals. So those are the things. So the tax authority, I think, they're also not helping matter in terms of awareness. So some taxpayer, even as we are talking, some people did not even know the tax that they are eligible to pay. Even though we as a tax consultant, we know we have to educate them. But from the tax authority as well, there's the form of their education is very, very low, which is what is affecting compliance even in Nigeria. And everybody are running away from. Yeah. You said what?
I said absolutely. But you just have a few seconds more to round up your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just round up. So that is just so in terms of the awareness. So that's just the a place where the tax authority are also lacking behind. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for that contribution. And I think it's a very, very relevant one, because I was also going to ask Mr. Godwin a question that borders around that. Like, what are the tenets of these agencies? Like, that is a very unforgivable mistake, if you ask me. And if he was on this call, I would like to know what would have been the next best action for the for the organization to do against the organization that overtaxed or did whatever the malfunction was, because it's not something, it's a huge sum of money that they would have to pay. So these are certain things, and I don't know what the what agency particularly is supposed to help with the sensitization or awareness of these. I don't know if it falls within the tenets of the National Orientation Agency, because I think that another reason why this happens is due to poor sensitization. So that and more we'll get to ask Mr. Godwin when he comes back on this call, especially when we have the Q&A session. So thank you very much for that contribution. And so now we're just going to move on to the next speaker, and he's going to be talking about okay, well, let me just introduce him first. So our next speaker is Mr. Ogenerume Digban, and I hope I pronounced your name well. Please, if I didn't, forgive me, but please correct me when you come up to speak. He's an experienced auditor who has worked with EY and SAPRO and now serves as a finance officer at a cyber security firm. So from his introduction, you already know that he has a bit of tech and AI in some way. And so today, Mr. Digban will be speaking to us about the use of AI-powered risk-based auditing and SaaS. And I mean, I know that almost everybody here would know what SaaS stands for, software as a service. So I'll take that again. The use of AI-powered risk-based auditing and SaaS tax computation platforms in Nigeria. And I think this is quite technical. So I would ask that please we pay as much attention to this and know how relevant it is to us and how to also implement it in our different businesses. So again, like we did for Mr. Godwin, with virtual claps and applause, please let us make welcome Mr. Ogenerume Digban for his session. You're welcome, sir. The stage is yours now, and I would really love it if you can turn on your camera because your camera was on earlier.
Okay, good to be here, and good morning, everybody. Apologies, I might be looking around because I don't know if you can tell, I'm in a car. I had to go out and I couldn't go back home before joining the session, so I guess they observe in case, you know. All right.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for having me on this session today. My name is Ogenerume. She already said that, and I think you pronounced it correctly. So you can rest easy now, right? I'm going to be starting by trying to debunk a general notion, so to speak, and the notion is that auditors are witch hunters, right? To put it more clearly, an audit exercise is to catch thieves in an organization. Let me try to take you. Well, for this session, I'm going to try and take you guys on a journey, right? Because AI is fairly recent, right? It's not like 2 years old or anything, but I mean, compared to how far auditing has been happening, AI is fairly recent, right? But then let me say something about my early years as an auditor. I did not set out to do audit. I didn't set out to do accounting and all of that. But I mean, here I am, it's paying the bills. So it's doing well. I'm here, right? Before I got into my first audit firm, it was an uncle, back in the days. I also had that notion. I also thought that if you're going for an audit exercise, you're going there to find out the people who are thieves in this organization. You're going out to find out the fraudulent people and trying to expose them so that the company can fire them. And then they would say, oh, this person is doing a good job, right? That was the idea I had to. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that. But at the time, it was it was the option. Not option per se, it was the opportunity, yes, that presented itself to me. And I mean, I had to take it. It was new terrain, new territory. I had to, try to understand how things worked and try to grab that opportunity. So my very first engagement, it was a culture shock for me, right? Because all of the things I thought about were just washed down the drain. There's what we call audit planning before you go for an audit, where you and your partner or the manager sit down and talk about the audit, how it will go. I hope everyone can hear me, right? Awesome. How the audit will go, who's going to do what, the duration of the audit, the amounts that you're going to charge for that audit and all of that. And then in the course of the audit planning, my partner said, remember, an audit is not a witch hunt. You're not going there to catch thieves. You're not going there to find out who is stealing what and all that. And I was really surprised. And that was the first time I got to learn that the purpose or the reason for an audit is to express an opinion, right? I don't know, most of us may have heard this, but it's to express an opinion on the financial statements of an organization. It's that simple, right? It's that simple. Simple in the sense that is what you're going there to do, but it's not simple in the work that you have to put in to do it, right? They're two different things. So first of all, is to have the understanding that, okay, the reason why an audit happens is because at the end of the day, the shareholders, the stakeholders, people who would need the information in the financial statement will need to have some sort of trust, right? Some sort of comfort, knowing that, okay, a particular auditor has certified that the financial statements presented herein can be relied upon. Right? That is entirely what an audit is. So now the process to be able to come to that conclusion is now a different thing entirely, right? When I was also back in the days before I even started auditing and all that, my boss would say, we're even enjoying, because back then they had long spreadsheets, physical spreadsheets. Now we have it in the form of Excel, right? Long spreadsheets where you have to physically and manually write down figures, use your big calculator to punch numbers to calculate them, right? You can imagine how tedious and how stressful all of that was. When now we have Excel to do, you just drag down, use functions and everything, and you're good to go. But that's just one part of audit as well, right? I'm also supposed to talk about software as a service. Okay, let me not jump. I was trying to get somewhere. I was also going to say that yes. Now for audit, right? Before now, where you have AI that can help you do a lot of things, right? You need to analyze data. You need to then first of all, you need to gather data, analyze the data, and then use that data to proffer solutions, or interpret the data and then proffer solutions from the data that you've gathered. Just a quick one. Let me look at my notes, right? Yes. Data analysis, yes, basically. So for you to be able to get that data, before, it used to be very tedious, but then with the introduction of AI, first of all, we all know what AI is, but for the purpose of this session, I'm going to just explain. It is AI is something. It is significantly transforming the traditional audit process, because we're focusing on audit, right? It is significantly transforming the traditional audit process by enhancing efficiency, accuracy, and risk management. You see, these three things, they are the core focus of every organization. Every organization wants to be efficient, they want to be accurate in their records, and then they want to manage their risks. You get, because if a company is not efficient, if you're not accurate in your record keeping, and if you cannot manage risk, then there's no point being in business, right? AI has come to make this easier, so to speak, because if you had to do everything manually, it'll be problematic, it'll be chaotic. That's why back in the days, you would hear of stories of people or of companies who had to close down, who the government had to shut down. I can't remember. There's one I'm trying to think about right now. Who It's not coming to my head right now, but because of their practices, because there was so much malpractice in the organization, it was so bad that they just had to shut them down, right? But now you not have so much of that, because everything seems to be automated now, right? When you're entering figures into your softwares, when you're entering, so there's something called delegation. So one person is not responsible for doing so many things. That used to be the case back in the days. One person enters the records, one person does this, one person does that. At the end of the day, you find out that one person is responsible for almost everything. So where is the control in that? Right? We didn't have all that. But now with the introduction of AI, it has helped to increase efficiency. It has helped to increase accuracy. It has helped to manage risk. Right? Imagine a business that is doing so much numbers and then you cannot manage your risk. At the end of the day, you're just going to be making a lot of money, but you're not even seeing the money. Right? There's a difference between paper profit and what is actually in the bank. Cash is actually king. So if you're saying you're in business, but then the only time people see that you're making profit is in your books, is in your financial statements, which is on paper, and there's a problem. Right? The idea is to actually have money in the bank. All right. So yeah, let me not dwell so much on that. Then for service, software as a service, back in the days we had Excel. Apart from Excel, now we had, like I said, people used to do manual imputing of figures on paper rather, right? They used to call it Kalamazoo back in the day, Kalamazoo. So like it's Excel, but it's physical copies and then it's very big. So manually entering everything and all that. But software as a service, a very good example. I don't know if you all know QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is an accounting software. They're called ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. They are used to enter. They used to keep records, keep documents, and all of that. But then they are hosted in the cloud. Right, let me try to give you a proper definition of what that is. Just a moment. All right, so SAS stands for Software as a Service. It's a software distribution model where applications are hosted by a third-party provider and made available to users over the internet, usually via a subscription. You have to pay for it. Usually it's monthly. Different softwares have different packages. So there's some that for small businesses, they're softwares, right? They can cater to small businesses, cater to medium and small enterprises, and cater to big businesses, right? But as some businesses grow, they would need to maybe change their softwares, because over time you realize that the business has grown beyond what the software can cater to. So you have to increase your services, increase the things that the software can provide, right? There's something else I wanted to talk about. Okay, yeah. So service software as a service are usually cloud based, right? It's subscription based. So usually I don't know of anyone in Nigeria. So because most of the ones I know usually built in US dollars, right? So it depends on the package you're using and depends on what you need the software to do for your business, right? That is what you subscribe to. So usually monthly, or you can maybe pay for a year and get discounts and all of that. It is the updates are automatic to that software, right? It's accessible from anywhere. When the age of working remotely, working from home. So I once had a job. Yeah, Choma talked about me working at Sapro. While I was at Sapro, it was a completely remote job. I could work from anywhere. I could work from the moon if I wanted to, if I had the means to, right? But it was completely remote, and that's because you don't need a physical location for that software, right? Wherever you, as long as you have internet connectivity, you are good to go. That's one of the advantages of software as a service, and then it's scalable. Scalable in the sense that you can increase. I said something about a business growing and then having their software growing with them, right? Growing, having the services that the software provides, growing with them, right? So that is also one of the advantages of having software. But back to audit, which is my first love, because I had the opportunity to do a lot of things while I was working as an auditor. Now I have moved away from audit and I'm now in the industry, as we like to say it. But audit is a very interesting profession, right? Because it exposes you so much to a lot of things, right? You can be in, let's say, financial services. No, let me not say financial services because it's more like banks and financial institutions. But while I was in auditing, I worked in SIGA. SIGA is in EY, it's called consumer, it's for consumer industries, right? So you're working in you're auditing hospitals, you're auditing fast moving consumer goods, companies, you're auditing many different companies, right? And you're having different exposure to different types of things, right? You meet with different people, different organizations, and then it's also an opportunity for you to let people understand what audit is about. Because sometimes the moment auditors step into an organization, the people, their contact people become very hostile, right? So it's not just about the work. It's not just about what you go there to do. It's also about understanding that you have to let these people understand that I'm not here to witch hunt you. I'm not here to try to cost you your job. I'm not here to get you to lose your job, right? I'm here to help your organization to do better. Because at the end of the day, when I give you a report, right, it will then, when people see the report, when the management of the organization sees the report, it helps them to make informed decisions, right? Those decisions, hopefully, are decisions that would improve the lot of the employees of that company. You get, so that is pretty much my introduction into this. So I don't know, like Shoma said, there'll be questions subsequently. I already have a couple of things noted, hoping that there'll be answers to some of my questions. So I don't want to say everything and then when the questions come, I don't have answers to them. So yeah, I'll be stopping here for now. Thank you everyone for listening.
thank you for presenting. And that was really great. And it's great to know how much you love auditing yourself. And it's great to see people talk about something that they are very much passionate about. And I want to believe you are in Nigeria. Are you in Nigeria?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I would like to know from you about how you perceive the adoption of most of these technologies. And in fact, SaaS as itself in Nigeria, are people really adopting it or embracing it gracefully, especially for auditing and for other finance related activities?
All right. Thank you, Chama, for that question. First of all, I would say that categorically you do not have a choice, right? Because if you say that you don't want to conform, you'll be kicked out of business. Businesses spring up every day. So to answer your question, yes, people are adopting it. Sometimes people are adopting it. Sometimes, you know how they say, "Do it afraid," something like that, right? You're adopting it, even though you don't know how you're going to finally eventually use it, but you know that you have to adopt it. And when you adopt it in the process, you can get experts, you can get people who can teach you how to use this software, who can teach you how to use these new technologies. Because trust me, if you don't learn how to use them, it's like saying that because you don't know how to use Excel, you would rather use Kalamazoo, you'd rather use pen and paper, right? At some point, you're going to you would feel it. Your business would feel it. You will know that you're doing something wrong, and then everybody around you is using Excel. Excel is basic for the purpose of this explanation. Basic in the sense that I'm trying to compare it to something that is more manual, right? So if you're not using if everybody around you is using Excel, or let me leave Excel. If everybody around you is using a software, QuickBooks, for example, I'll keep saying QuickBooks because currently I use QuickBooks Online. If everybody around you is using QuickBooks Online and you're using even a less powerful, a less robust software, right? You would see that your business the software is not able to cater to your business. It's not able to take up all the information. It's not able to do what you need it to do. Over time, you'd see the need to upscale your software. And then if it means paying for it, if it means moving from that software to another one, you have to do it. So yes, I mean, a lot of people are embracing these softwares, these new technologies, and actually using them.
Okay, that's great to know, because I know that in this part of the world, maybe because we're, do I say developing or underdeveloped? I think we're underdeveloped in Nigeria. Let's just accept that as truth. So I think in this part of the world, we are slow to embrace some very technologically advanced tools and gadgets and other things. And so it kind of impedes the seamless flow of work for us. But I believe that it will continue to get better. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that. So there's a lot more questions for you. And I think I saw a question in the chat box. Yes, I think this is directed to you. So I will just quickly read this one out, but I would like to say that it is great for you to stick around because we have a panel session shortly after this, and we have another presentation. So after that presentation, we'll have a panel session where we get to answer some more questions about this and a few more about the panel session itself. So the question here is from Learn French with Blessing. And the question is, do you mind, sir? What's your experience like literally? I ask because, like you said, you won't visit offices without some form of or little amount of disagreements or challenges. What are your approaches to certain risk assessment or management? I don't know. Is this question meant to be for him or for Mr. Godwin? Or do you want to answer it? Do you think it's for you?
I think it's for me because he made mention of saying, like you said, you won't visit offices without some form of or little amount of disagreements. Well, maybe we should ask her. Blessing, is it for me?
Yeah.
Is she still
Blessing, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. The question is for you, sir. Thank you.
All right, then. Please go ahead. Thank you, Blessing.
All right. What's your experience like literally? Well, I've had people who looked at me and thought I'm too young to be talking to them as an auditor. I'm too young to be asking them questions about about their job, about their role. Like, I've been here for like 20, 30 years, you just waltz in and you think you can ask me questions. And they only answer because they have a duty to be responsible to auditors. Other than that, if you just come in as a nobody and then you ask them questions, nobody will even answer you. Right? So that's one of the experiences I had, in my early days. Right. And then what are your approaches to certain risk assessments or management? At the end of the day, at the end of an audit exercise, there's what is called a management letter. A management letter contains all of the points, all of the discoveries or observations of the auditors during the audit engagement, right? It is meant to be presented to the management, right? And then we proffer solutions or how we think that things can be done better. So if we feel like you need to upgrade your software, we'll put that in. If we feel like you need to, your internal controls need to be more stringent, we suggest those things. So my job is to present that to the management, and I go my way, right? Present that and then proffer solutions. So it's I don't necessarily have to sit down with the people, the employees or the people I'm supposed to be liaising with at the point of audit to start talking to them about, you have to do this, you have to. I can ask you questions, right? So I can get information to do my work. But other than that, my job is to analyze data, prepare reports, and then I'm done. So I don't know if that answers the question. Blessing.
Blessing, does that answer your question?
Yes, it's okay, sir. Thank you.
All
You're
right.
welcome.
So I also believe it does answer the question. Thank you very much for buttressing on that. And so we'll just give you a bit of a break for now. So I see that Mr. Godwin is back on the call, and I think he wasn't completely done with his presentation before the network kicked him out, or maybe his phone, or maybe Nigeria happened in some way. So Mr. Godwin, if you can still hear me, I would like you to finish up with your presentation, and if there are a few questions for you, we can take them now. Afterwards, we'll move on to our next speaker, and then we'll have the panel session. So if you have questions and cannot ask them right now, please just hold on to them. There'll be an opportunity for you during the panel session for you to ask as many questions as possible. However, it's also important to note that we are trying to keep this conversation to 2 hours, and I'm assuming that we started at 10 o'clock, so we are looking at 12 o'clock to be our end time. So please try to be succinct with your contributions or questions or whatever you want to say. So Mr. Godwin, the floor again is yours, and I would like you to just maybe round up in 5 minutes, and then we move on to the next session. Thank you. Mr. Godwin, are you here? Can you hear me? Okay, it doesn't look like it. I don't know what's wrong with Mr. Godwin's network today, but would like to get the best out of your presentation, because it was already making a lot of sense, especially to me, who is quite a novice in the world of taxation and financial practice. So without further waste of your time, because Saturday is a very important day, you all could have been anywhere doing anything or doing your chores, but you are here today, so we don't want to take so much of your time. I will move on to the next speaker very quickly. And like I said earlier, it's good to have you here, sir. Our next speaker is Dr. Adejobi Adeloye, and he is many things. I'm looking at his profile, I'm like, this is a lot. This is a lot, actually. So I don't think I want to be the ones to do the introduction for you. Thank you for turning on your camera already. So, sir, I'll give you the honors of actually introducing yourself to us, and then we'll jump right into what you'll be talking about. So the floor is yours, sir.
Really? Okay. Sorry, permit me. I want to get free. We're in an age where it's not all the time that you gotta, have to permit me. I feel bad enough. My name is Joby. I'm a startup like virtually everybody. I'm a business owner. and I'm also well, yeah, I'm into so many things, and I'll just leave it as that. But just see me as I'm gonna be speaking as a friend. I'm gonna be speaking as a business person. I'm gonna be speaking as someone who has worked extensively in Nigeria uh, and in other parts of the world. And I'm also going to be speaking uh, and saying a few things where we're going to be learning on the impact of growth and the attendant things, that come with growth. So I'm going to be using a few stories and analogies, and whatever questions you have for me, I'll try to answer, to the best of my ability. Now, I'm going to say, I'm going to start with this: where there's no law, there's no sin. And then where you are trying to plant one or two things and you don't think that what you're planting is going to grow, then there's a problem. There's no business person or there's no farmer that plants and would use his own hands to cover the plant. At some point, the plant is going to germinate, it's going to grow, it's going to come out, and then it's going to die because there's no space to grow. So the same way it is when we say we want to register or want to start a business or want to start a career, and you're not thinking you're going to grow. You're not adequately positioning yourself for growth. At some point, you're going to start to face penalties that you'll be like, oh, what if you had done this little thing or done this, put in this little plug, and all this new penalties or all this trouble would not have surfaced in the first place. So with whatever I'm going to shorten and speak about, I hope we're able to learn at the end of the next few minutes on the type of business that we're starting. I'm sure many entrepreneurs, many businesses, many companies, they probably started as sole proprietorship. They started as, okay, it's a me, myself company. And then, okay, let's just start and so that we can get some profit. And so at some point when there's that bar where you actually should switch to becoming a corporation, or where you should switch to becoming an incorporated company or a corporation or a limited liability company. At some point, if you want to go, depending on the course of what you're doing, if you want to run it in such a way that you become an organization, that means you're going to be having to work with people that should have assigned roles such that you work as a team. A few things I let people know is, no matter how clean you are, you can't function as a broomstick. You need to align and join with other broomsticks of the same length so that you're functional as a broom or as a brush. It's all teamwork. So many companies up till now, they graduate, and then obviously with the advent of AI, they are still sole proprietors. They are still one-man business. Obviously, maybe this time around, delegating the operational activities into the software, and now still being the same ones being totally responsible for feeding the software with all the details that comes with the role. So I'm going to be sharing a few things that I put up, but basically,
okay. Excuse me. Sorry, I was
yeah.
going to ask. Ouch! Nigeria just happened. Jeez. But anyways, I think I can still be seen. So I was going to ask if you would want me to share your slides or present your slides for you, because I'm aware you sent some slides. Would you mind me sharing that?
Yeah, you can. I can send you another one. I did some other ones.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah. Oh well, you can pop that up. That would just would speak to a comprehensive masterclass, which is something that I think people would need to understand tax issue of and avoid that tax issues avoidance, the strategies to mitigate that, especially for the Nigerian startups, is something that I want to speak to. But you can share that if that's I'm trying to run something such that we don't get distracted by just looking at some paper. You can
Okay,
keep
then.
that here to everybody at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So
then. That's fine.
yes, with a short amount of time, I would like to speak, and then we can go over slides later. First is to understanding where we live. That's the first to consider. If you live in Rwanda, if you live in Nigeria, you need to. If you live outside Nigeria, you need to understand the tax system of where you are currently. Otherwise, if you don't understand that, if you see it as something that it's not worth considering, it's going to come after you when you start to grow. When you start to build a house, we shouldn't think about, okay, we just want to build. Otherwise, we won't be able to determine the kind of foundation that we're going to put in for what we're building. Many just say they want to start businesses, but some have the vision that they want to build a skyscraper. The kind of foundation for a skyscraper is totally different for a bungalow. So understand how the internal revenue system works, how the tax system works. Then also understand if what you're planting or what you're starting has the impact of embracing artificial intelligence or embracing softwares to work for you. I am trying to limit because of the time. Documentation is important. If you have files, many have systems, and then many have computers, or many have phones, or many even have their data in the cloud, but yet they have no records to show. Year after year, before you know it, is 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out. What are your projections towards record keeping? Usually it should be in your startup policy before even beginning the business, whereby you're able to present and provide records of either your failures or your challenges or your income flow, your expenses, expenditure, what you plan to buy, how much it's going to cost, and if tax is involved. If interest is involved, or if taxes, if you have a tax, you're taking taxes from people, people are paying with tax included, you should remit it to the government. If you have different projects, that also has advantages in regarding to tax. If your business is around renewable energy, if it's around you would have import duty exceptions on equipment. You would have carbon credits monetization options. You would have in countries where wind energy is the bone of contention, you have even tax holidays for solar projects, for wind projects. If you're into healthcare innovation, or if you're into manufacturing things around healthcare, there are also tax credits for all that. There are duty-free medical equipment imports. That's if that's the kind of business that you're focusing on. If you're into manufacturing, you should think about SMEDAN. You should think about joining like Abuja Enterprise Agency. I know about Abuja Enterprise Agency. I knew about SMEDAN. These are people that these are bodies that can help or guide you, and then if you have they can help and guide you into export processing, like a processing zone benefits. We have things like free trade zone in Nigeria, and then we also have production utilization credits that can be issued to people that are working within that space. And then if you're starting, especially when you're starting a business and you're having an initial structure, your thinking is, okay, maybe you may have between 28 to 32% tax rate. By the time you're growing, there's something called business tax, meaning there's a way your accountant and your legal friends can look into it, whereby they would see processes, portals in your business structure that can help to reduce tax, such that tax is not leveraged on you as personal tax. It's leveraged on you as business tax. Now, the type of business structure that you start with, either as a company or as a partnership or as sole proprietorship, it significantly impacts your taxation. You should that way you're able to compare if you're going to be paying personal tax or if you're going to be paying corporate tax. These are questions that you can ask your tax consultant or your auditor, and you'll be able to get insights on when to, or if you're even going to be putting it up and you'll be getting dividends. Then some other people I know as a business, at some point you can get some advice on when to start a holding company. It has its own advantages, because a properly structured holding company arrangement can provide significant tax advantages, especially for Nigerian startups, especially those seeking to operate in multiple sectors or seeking to separate intellectual property from operations. Many have service-based businesses, many have product-based businesses, and many have intellectual-based business, people creating content or having courses or having, I noticed some people, learn French or learn this, all that, what you're selling, you are the product. So for people in that category, you have intellectual property, which sooner or later, the taxpayers are going to come after intellectual property. And now I don't know how that is going to be taxed, but once you have a holding company, it helps to provide some risk isolation between operations and then simplify investment structures. And then for those that operate with multiple entities, as in that are engaged in different business activities, which is very, very common in Nigeria, where you have people selling this and then also selling this and then also selling that. You can optimize tax treatment, especially when you're dealing with different operations, and you should have valid business purpose documentation and have them in separate portals. That would actually help your business. And In raising funds, the type of funds you're going to raise, the type of investments that you're going to raise is also critical in your tax planning. When you're starting a business, it's just important to have this kind of agreements, whereby you have proper things set up in place. You're also able to join bodies like SMIDAN, which I mentioned earlier. That way you're able to get incentives and exemptions. And then because how you raise capital significantly would impact your startup's tax position. Some startup businesses with equity funding, some startup with debenture funding, debenture capital, some startup through debt financing, by getting some loan from a bank. And then strategic use of all this debt financing can create some tax deductible interest expenses, but excessive debt can also trigger some capitalization rules. So it's just good to glean from or from bodies like SMIDAN or bodies like SMIDAN or SMIDAN itself, and try to see what you can gain from all that. On your workforce structure. Okay, I'm seeing some questions. Okay, fine. I would address that once we're done. On workforce structure and your target market, it's not all the time that your target market should be limited by you, such that whatever you're selling or whatever you're dealing with, if you're not getting patronage from within, then make it global. Make it the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller every day. That's why I'm having to wake up at 3 a.m. to join a meeting with everybody awake in their daytime, and I'm being robbed of my sleep, to provide value, obviously. So see it from the angle that the kind of value that your business is providing, you should lead yourself such that you're also able to trade internationally. You're able to trade without bounds. So carefully, at some time, you should evaluate your employment versus contractor relationships. Seek to have vendors, have partners, nothing stops you from franchising your business. Nothing stops you from expanding your business. That way, like Uber now, the Uber model is such that do they have cars? Where are their cars? You don't know where their cars is. They're not buying any car. You would go buy the car. You would go finance the car. You would put gas in the car, and they just take a cut. So why not, why not review at some time you will need to review your model, and in such a way that you're also able to expand without having to deal with people coming to leverage and put some sanctions, and it's other people doing it. You're just taking a cut. And it's your intellectual property, Then in putting records, you should be digitally compliant in such a way that your records are documented, and then they are also secure. There are things that you can pull out and you can show, such that by the time people come at you with estimated billing, you can instantly respond by, hey, this is my return for last year, this is my return for 2 years ago, and this is, that way it shows proper structure and shows proper organization, and it's better for your company at the end of the day. So I want to talk briefly on at least some action plans from some simple action plans for tax optimization that we can do after, like, take homes after this presentation. One is to assess, you'll be the first to assess your business in trying to run it in the next 7 days. What documentation can I show? If an auditor comes into my business or calls me up in the next 7 days, what can I show that will show my expenses or my inflow and how I'm making money and what I'm paying and how what would I be able to show in 14 days? Evaluate all tax incentives, based on your business activities, your business location. Is your business physically located? Is it located online? What's your investment profile? Why should I invest? Because these are critical things that investors would look at to be able to fund you or to be able to even give you a grant. Or to, some people have been applying for grants and applying for loans and they're not getting it. And they're now wondering, is God against them, or what demon are they fighting? It's just because the investors are seeing your business as a risky business, as a very risky business that they won't get their money back if they should put their money into it. Because at some point your business should grow, and really the essence of your business growing is that it should grow with investor funding. So those are things that you can, I'm trying to cut so that I can round up like quickly. And now tax planning checklist by growth stage. Before you get some seed funding, or before you get some crowdfunding or some funding pooling, it's good to understand how you're registering the company. Your structure selection. Is it as a personal business? Is it as a sole proprietor? Is it as a company? Is it as a corporation? Is it as a non-profit? Is it, and then your compliance calendar, your SMIDA registration. For growth stage, at what stage are you going to be evaluating on whether to have a holding company? How compliant is your startup or your company with digital systems, with software as a service, with then when are you planning to scale up? When are you what is the pricing to the different stages or the different products or services that you offer? And when do you plan to exit the planning stage? What specialized industry incentives are you thinking about? These are things that I will try to
Yes. These are very important questions or factors to consider. And I would say that you even went beyond just the confines of taxation and fiscal policies and all of that. You literally just gave us a crash course on startup and the different models and different things, because what you've said now, somebody can run with it to start a business, because you talked about the different facets of it and talked about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And I'm like, wow, this is really robust. So thank you very much for really breaking and demystifying all of the very intricate parts of businesses. And you also talked about taxation, which is very important and which is more like the core or the meat part of this conversation today. However, I would like to say thank you specially because you mentioned that we had to wake you up at 3 a.m. By the way, I think you are joining in from Canada, right?
Yes.
So you see, he's joining in from Canada and we were here. It's 11:15 or 16 right now. And he's somewhere and it's maybe like past 3 or 4 a.m. there. We really appreciate your time. And I think that with everything you said, it had elicited a lot of questions from different people. I see 2 people's hands up, but then these 2 people still have questions in the comment box. So I think I should just read out their questions so that you answer to them. And then we move on to the next session because we are trying to keep this to 2 hours and we should be leaving here at 12 noon. All right, so the first question, which is by Richard Dew. His question says, if we supply digital products to Nigerian customers from abroad, are we VAT registered and charging 7.5% at POS as required under Finance Act 2024? Wow, this sounds like someone that is really, really into the finance world. So it's good to hear your thoughts on this. So I'll allow you to respond to this question first, and then I'll read the second one. So if this works for you, Mr. Richard, I would like you to bring your hands down so that we don't assume that you are asking another question. So sir, please, you can go ahead to respond to his question if you get the question, or if you want him to further explain, then maybe he might just have to unmute and explain further.
I want to say, with my experience in doing business in Nigeria, where I had to supply medical equipment or supply medication. For when you're bringing in anything into, well, from what I was charged, eventually, you would still pay the withholding tax, but you will also pay the taxes of where you're purchasing from. You know, especially if you're purchasing from outside Nigeria. So for the things I brought in from outside Nigeria, I paid like I was paying on Amazon. I paid the price of the product. Then I now paid the GST, PST. I paid the taxes. They added the taxes, but they didn't call it taxes. They called it they put them in as duties, and then I now had to transfer them. I had to ferry them, which I paid a bulk part by, you know, depending on if I was bringing in by ship or if I was bringing in by air. Then by the time it got to Nigeria, I now had to face the hurdle of the customs, because most of what they were doing, especially for the physical products, were based on an estimated pricing. You know, like that's why you see at times people that bring in vehicles, they don't mind bringing the vehicles in pieces and putting all sorts of mud and whatever, you know, such that it's coming in as scrap. You know, and then by the time it gets here, they couple everything back. Otherwise, they just look at it, and then once they're able to define it as, oh, this is a complete vehicle, and you know, they look at the value for the current new one, and then they slam duties on it that you have to pay before the car leaves the port. And then by the time so at the end of the day, for people that have businesses, especially supply businesses, in answering your question, duties, you know, like I heard it from Mr. Godwin, the people that are looking at you, they just want to get money. They want to get funds because they think you're making so much money, so they just slam you. And then by law, if you say 7%, are you going to add, you know, especially when you are even bidding, many organizations will tell you that they don't want to see all those taxes and all those things. They expect that you've already factored it into your pro forma invoice, and which is coming against an unstable inflation index, and it's also struggling against a value of the naira. You know, because the person that you're probably issuing the invoice to is in Nigeria, or is a corporation in Nigeria, is a government facility in Nigeria that is going to end up paying you eventually in naira. and they may not pay you in 30 days, they may pay you in 3 months, or they may pay you forever, you know. And then you by the time you end up getting the funding, the value has probably depreciated. And you know, so when you want to deal, it's also good to factor in these instability, and factor all that into your pro forma and explain it, you know, because
Okay.
but you know, all that is still within the tenets of what has a cap. You know, many products have a cap that you can't really charge above. Some services also have a cap that you can't charge above. Intellectual property currently really does not have a cap. You can, like, for what I'm saying right now, I can do it for free. I can do it for 300,000. I can do it for $1 million. It's intellectual property, you know, which everybody has. So learn to factor all that and put a division into it.
Fantastic response. Richard Yu, I believe that this has satisfactorily answered your question, and I also got to learn from it, so I know that you've actually gotten a good response to your question. So I don't want us to take so much time. We're going to take the next question from Madel Hardy very quickly, and the question is: payroll and mobility risk. Do we have payee withholding and okay, let me start again. Payroll and mobility risk. Do we have payee withholding and social security compliance for expatriates and remote staff working partly from Lagos or Abuja? These are questions. All right, and you have a remark here from Mr. Godwin saying, good explanation, sir, and I support. All right, sir, please go ahead to respond to the question if you get it.
Payee for expatriates. The times I've worked in Nigeria, I worked as a Nigerian. So I'm yet to work as an expatriate, and I don't know. I don't know what works with when you're hiring an expatriate into your business. Is the expatriate working with the laws within Nigeria, which you probably served or engaged that expatriate, or is the expatriate coming in as an independent contractor or partner? You know, the terms of engagement. You know, it's something that you need to consider, because some get paid per job, some get paid per hour, some get paid per, you know, and all these are totally different from the running in Nigeria. Nigeria is Nigerian career system or pay system is monthly, which does not align with payment in other climes. In US, in London, in Canada, it's usually pay per hour for most career people, or for most people that get jobs, you know. But some get paid per project, so depending on the rules or terms of engagement, usually that also includes the payment structure, or you know, how you're going to pay that person. That should sufficiently answer on how the expatriate is going to be paid. You know, it's yeah.
All right. Yes, thank you very much. And there's a follow-up comment from the person that asked the question, Madel Hardy, and he says, filing in Lagos feels like a custody battle. FIRS wants the revenue, LIRS wants the revenue. Meanwhile, our cash just wants some stability. Our innocent cash, it will find stability soon, I believe. So yes, thank you very much for adding that. And I think that you have very intellectually responded to these questions. And if there are further questions, we'll be moving on now to the panel session. And I see that Mr. Godwin is back. I know that you were interrupted. Yeah. Okay, so someone just raised his hand, but can you just hold on for a bit? When we move on to the panel session, you'll be able to ask your question or make your contribution. So, Mr. Godwin, I know you hadn't finished up with your question, with your contribution or your presentation rather earlier. And I would like to just allow you about, say, 4 minutes to just round up with that. And then we move on to the panel session where we get to answer questions from your session as well as every other session. So you have the floor now for about 4 minutes. Just quickly round up and then we move on to the next session.
Okay. Wow. I've been listening in and my network has been really, really bad. I don't know if you can hear me now.
I can
Choma,
hear
can you
you.
hear me?
I
Okay,
can hear you.
awesome.
I want to hear you for long.
What was the last thing you heard me say before? If you can remind me so that I can just start from there without going back to everything.
My memory. Well, you were talking about was it collaboration? I don't remember, to be honest.
I think I was talking about strategies to reduce risk. And, I talked about how, relationship building actually matters a lot, especially when you're talking about government and, especially when we're talking about people to partner with rather than make enemies with. You're not going to be able to avoid anything, especially if the government has put it in the law. You can always, skip some things for now, temporarily, but it has a negative compound effect on you. And all of these things will come back eventually to bite you. One of the things I've actually seen happen in Nigeria, because I'm speaking from, perspective of someone who does business in Nigeria. One of the things I've seen is that, the law seems or looks as though it is lax, as though people don't take it seriously. But it actually comes back to become very difficult to navigate when there is a bottleneck, especially when you haven't been doing the right things, So businesses need to treat compliance as a business strategy. It's not one of those things you take as a bureaucratic step when you're talking about setting up your business. It's actually a strategy to ensure that your business continues to survive. I made mention, or did I make mention of the Paystack situation? I spoke about the Paystack situation with Zap. Paystack launched a new product called Zap, and they had a lot of licensing issues with that. First, it was the trademark name. Second, it was the right to carry out the kind of business the innovation was providing a solution for. And that business was reserved for people who have a license in microfinance or people who have a license in, banking to be able to hold funds effectively. And, you also have the situation with Meta getting charged, all those hundreds of millions of dollars, because of how they use data. Of course, there's a data protection law in Nigeria. There are regulators for everything. There are regulators for food. There are regulators for how you use data, how you store customer information, how you even process food. There are regulations for the standards of your products. There's SON and there's all of these things. There's even regulators right now for how electricity is consumed, distributed, and even generated. So you might set up a business and you have a great innovation, but regulation can actually be the roadblock that effectively shuts it down, especially when you don't have the right relationships, when you don't have the right licenses, or when you don't even have the right permissions, to carry out some of those things. And for people who are coming into Nigeria, it might look like a big jungle because you don't know who to speak to. The environment is not very friendly in the sense that a lot of information is not made public. You can go to a regulator website and you'd find information that is outdated, still hanging out there. And, it seems as if nobody cares. So I would always advise, business people who don't have the knowledge or who don't have the time or the capacity to do all of these investigations to hire people who are, really good at this, tax consultants, lawyers, and people who are in the field to actually get them, around this situation and they put them on the right path. At first, it might look like you are spending a lot of money, but I want you to look at the opportunity cost, because the alternative of that money you are spending or that resources, the time you're spending to ensure that all of these things are put in place is actually worth it in the long run when you eventually have to pay huge amount of fines or even get shut down ultimately. Someone on the call mentioned that that it is inevitable, in Nigeria it's inevitable. It might look like you are escaping it today, but inevitable, it's good, and it's really important, almost necessary rather, to really just set up these relationships and get your documents audited, get them routinely checked, and continue to grow. Thank you. I just had to rush through that.
All right.
I don't. Yeah.
Yes, and that was a very intelligent conclusion. I like how everything ended. There's a lot to learn from all of this. They say information is power, and knowledge is currency. So it is great to know all of these things. Before you began to speak, you had said something, and I think it's an additional response to the question that Mr. Joby had answered. He said many firms are unclear on if and how to register expatriates for NSITF, ITF, and PENCOM, even when they're short-term residents. So I think that that should answer a little more to the question that Hardy had asked. Then I see another question here from Patience Ndidi. So we're going to take further questions moving on to the next session, which is the panel session, and it's going to be a very brief one. So because of time, we're not going to dwell on just the topic or theme for the panel session. We're just going to have like a general Q&A session where we get to answer some of the questions or very pertinent questions from the different sessions that we've just had or different presentations that we've just had. Because we are a bit constrained with time, we may not be able to take all of the questions. So I would say maybe 2 questions per speaker so that we keep to our time, because we're also respecting your time. But generally, I would say as much questions as has been asked and responded to, they've been really important and helpful. Thank you very much to all our speakers. And earlier, a message was sent here to the chat box about sending your emails here to the chat box. I think some people were sending their emails, some questions through the email or something. But yes, please just send your emails here. For the participants on this call, please send your email. Would like to send some follow-up correspondence to you, so would like your email. And for this particular session, this is the first session. Yes, this is like the maiden edition of the virtual conference, which is this Economic Summit 2025. And over the next couple of months and before the year runs out, we're going to have a couple more sessions of virtual conferences of this sort. And like I said, also, this was put together by iTele Media, and would like to work with you. So if you are here and you'd like to collaborate with us, we are open to working with you. We are open for sponsorship for future conferences as well. And again, iTele Media is a media outlet, so we do everything media. We are one of your one-stop shops for everything media. So if you have events, you want to do a product documentary or a brand documentary, whatever it is that you need media presence for, we are your go-to people. So yes, I just wanted to mention that. And so without further ado, I see some more very important and intellectual questions in the chat box, but I'm just going to jump right into the panel session. So again, I would like to draw the attention of Mr. Godwin, Mr. Digban, and Mr. Joby. It's sad that we don't have a Miss or Mrs. here. We're just doing Mrs. but hopefully next time we have Mrs. So we're going to be having our panel session, and I would like that you are concise with your responses as much as possible so that we get to cover as many questions as we can and meet people's demands. So where do I start from now? Let me start with Mr. Godwin again, since you're the first to speak. Or let me just start with Mr. Digman, because there's a question here in the chat box for you. So let's start with that. And again, like I said, please try to keep your responses quite concise and succinct. So your question here for you is from Patience Ndidi, and it says, for firms just starting to explore AI in auditing, what's the best first step they can take to begin modernizing their processes? I'll take that again, or if you get it, you can just go on. For firms just starting to explore AI in auditing, what's the best first step they can take to begin modernizing their processes? Mr. Digban, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm here. You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can, but I can't see you.
Okay, just give me a moment. Just give me a moment, please. Hey, what's happening? Okay, how about now? Is it better now?
I think Choma is
Hello?
muted. Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I was speaking and I was muted. Okay, I can see you now. Yes.
okay. Is to understand your business needs, right? Because it is very important to know what you want first. It is important to know your problem first, and then you can find a befitting solution. So the best first step would be, first of all, to know exactly what you need that AI or that software to do for you, to do for your business. And then the next thing would be to find out who is in the best position to help you get it, right? Because if you're able to 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 tell what your problem is, to tell what you want what you want AI to do for you, or what you want the software to do for you. If, for example, you need it to be able to help you properly analyze data, right? It's not just any software that will do that. You need to be precise in what you want. So yeah, the first thing would be to identify the solution that you need for your business. Is that okay, Patience?
Patience, are you still on the call? And does that satisfactorily? Okay, yes. She says a yes, which is great. All right. So, Mr. Donald, thank you very much, Mr. Digban, for that response. Quite concise and straight to the point. So, Mr. Donald, I see your hand up. Is your question for Mr. Digban?
Hello.
Hi. Good morning to you.
Okay.
Please, who's your question for?
Good. Okay. I think my question is not specifically for one person. I think it's for all the speakers, and it's more like a concern. And I just wish they can find a way to attend to the question. Um, it's all about, we all agree and we know that the FRS are doing great job, and especially on the newly passed Nigerian tax bill, okay, where they harmonize a lot of taxes and all that. But the issue we have is that the states which operate under direct assessment system, they don't have a standardized method of doing things. Okay, if you want to apply for Pascal certificate here in Abuja, I mean, it's a whole lot of stress and all that, and you go another state to get, it's not the same processes and all that. I think a lot need to be done, in standardizing the state's method of collecting taxes. And also, the state should try and encourage the self-assessment regime. The Nigerian tax system generally is under self-assessment regime. But when you go to state to, you know, get tax clearance certificate or process your taxes and all that, or make payments, I mean, they will come up with this direct, assessment system. So I think those policymakers and I don't know, I'm just trying to raise this concern. Maybe there's a way to bring up, modernizing, stabilizing the state tax collection system. It's a very big concern.
Okay,
Somebody will
Mr.
just tell that,
Donald.
yeah,
Yes, thank you very much for your
yeah,
contribution. Sadly, we weren't able to get the best out of it because I think you are facing some network glitches here and there, because even Mr. Digwan said he could barely hear you. But generally, I know you talked about standardization, about how most of these firms, given FIRS as an instance, could have like a standard for how they carry out their practices. Am I right?
No, yes, I'm actually referring to the state inland
Please.
revenue services. Yes,
Okay,
like,
okay, okay. All right, thank you very much
yes.
for that. So, does anybody, okay, Mr. Joby, I see your hands up. Do you want to say something about his question? And any other member of the panel, you can give a response to that as well. Thank you.
I would want to. Well, there's some solutions that I'm going to prefer. This states, if they're willing to engage on a post-paid structure where they're willing to engage a digital centralized compliance tracking system that can provide service, either as a software or as a program, can provide, there are plugins, there are programs that if one can, all we just need is a go ahead and an opportunity to validate our competence. There are softwares that can pull all this, can manage effectively all the businesses, all the employees, all the parameters and processes in within the state's business structure, even if it's for tax purposes, and help to have a centralized compliance tracking system such that whatever is, because there are people that have businesses in one state, but they have operations in 2 or 3 other states apart from the state of registration, so where there's a compliance tracking system, wherever that company or whatever the companies are running, there's a digital dashboard that tracks different requirements, deadlines, documentation needs for each state that the business operates. Tools like Excel, like OneSuite, like QuickBooks, they can help manage these variations. And then you can have regular authority consultation, whereby at every month we have open houses that help to showcase like the dashboard, and it's a free thing, showcasing it to different businesses, showcasing it to different processes, so that they see how things work, they see how their businesses are improving, they see how certain businesses are compliant with taxes. And that way it's encouraging now for other startups or for other businesses or for people that don't even have an idea on taxation to join in and joining the centralized process, because that is now like a bridge point between the state tax system and the companies.
Fantastic response. Fantastic response, I must say. That was great, and I hope that it answers the question to the person that asked. Thank you very much. I don't know if Mr. Dickman or Mr. Godwin would like to respond to what Mr. Donald said about the standardization.
Okay. Can I just quickly add that I do agree with everything that my colleague has actually said. It's true. What needs to be done is a lot needs to be done. As it is now, we need a national, like a national body for tax collaboration or tax coordination, right? That would actually define clear boundaries and create standards for communication, and of course to kind of remove anything that brings double taxation, especially when you are taxing the same income. I remember there was the 2016 national tax policy that is supposed to provide the foundation for this to happen, but I don't know if any interagency coordination has actually followed since then. At this point, it will require reform or political will to actually bring reform in this regard. And of course, with that, would have a unified, tax platform, which is what my colleague is speaking about, something that actually brings all of these things together to harmonize and define the processes, so that, it will not be having payee treatments across states with different nomenclatures. We would be able to stay in one place and organize ourselves and automatically track liabilities and split them across the components where they actually belong in. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. These are great responses. I hope you guys have been taking notes. So hey, especially if you play in this space, this is like a crash course in 2 hours. Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin. And I totally agree. I think that there should be some level of synergy or harmony in most of the parastatals that play in this space, so that we don't come and today this person comes and knocks at your office or organization and is taxing for this. Another one comes tomorrow and you're like, am I working for you people? People should allow me breathe. So thank you very much for stating all of that. I'm going to take the few questions that I can see in the chat box, and then I have one question for each of the speakers, so that we can round up as soon as possible. So this next question, I'm going to assume that it is to Mr. Joby, because you're the one that talked about carbon footprints and renewable energy earlier. So I'm believing that this question is for you. However, the question, the person said to any of the speakers, ESG and carbon tax horizon scanning. If Nigeria introduces carbon pricing, talks resumed Q1 2025. What data do we need to quantify exposure and claim green investment credits? I'm not sure this question is for Disco. But anyways, Mr. Joby, do you have a response to this? Or does any other person want to respond to it?
Where there's no where there's no law, there's no sin. But where there's also no data, there's nothing to track. So in a country that is heavily dependent on fossil fuels, most of the vehicles, at least 98% of vehicles that you see on the roads are emitting carbon. The industries are emitting carbon. So the moment you start to bring in carbon capturing or carbon tax, many businesses, many industries will suffer for it. Many vehicles will suffer, because you're going to be indirectly polluting. You're going to be taxed for polluting the air, and you wouldn't want to start that. So data to run that right now, if one can, like I said earlier, if one can give an allowance of a body to just showcase, all we need is a green light to run and show how data can be captured, on how carbon can be captured, and how to and showcase it in a dashboard to the public. I think that should be the first step, because if one does not show the data or how one can even get access to the data, then there's nothing. There's no benchmark that we're going to be basing the measure, on for taxation purposes. So I think if we can start from that, then that's a good one.
Of course. Yes, that's a good place to start from. Thank you very much for that very concise response. That was very, very qualitative. So we have another question from Adenike Ijoma Alabi. And her question again is to Mr. Joby. However, reading through the question, I also think Mr. Godwin and Mr. Digban would have responses to add to this. The question says, what one policy change or regulatory improvement would you recommend to make Nigeria's tax system more business friendly and future proof? So I'll take that again. And again, like I said, any of the speakers can respond to this, but Mr. Joby, this was initially directed to you. What one policy change or regulatory improvement would you recommend to make Nigeria's tax system more business friendly and future proof? Mr. Joby, the floor is yours, and then Mr. Dickman and Mr. Godwin, you can add to it. But I still have questions, one question each for the three of you.
Okay, I want to say, I'll just be talking broadly. You know, one is at least if we can have where we can have just that one comprehensive digital system that, you know, like in Canada, you have CRA across Canada. In US, you have the IRS. You know, if we can have a one single tax identification and filing platform that is digital, meaning it is digitally able to track and, you know, all this multiple taxation. One, because it's digital, it's not going to tax you twice. But because everything right now is in different silos, we have one department coming to tax you today, another department is coming to knock your door tomorrow, fire is coming to knock your door in 3 days' time, you know, because they are all in different silos. Everybody is like doing standalone. But once we can have a one-stop shop where businesses register once, they can file all taxes, whether it is federal, state, and local, through a single portal, eliminating all this fragmented approach, you know, multiple taxation, administrative burden, you know, come on. It will even send reminders for filing deadlines. It will reduce compliance costs, reduce confusion. You know, it's also going to be transparent. It's going to, come on, just that one system. If we, you know, and starting with having to embrace a validation. We all most times when people come in to say, oh, okay, we want to even show the government that we're capable of doing this, don't pay us. We will send you the bill after 3 months, or your bill starts counting after 3 months. That means I'm going to use my software, or I'm going to use my intellectual property to provide solutions for you for 3 months free. You know, and then after, you know, just to showcase to you how robust my solution can address the current problems. That is all. You know, once that can set in place, it will show transparency, it will consolidate the audit process, it will harmonize all tax calendars, it's going to be, come on, one dashboard. That's
I totally agree with you. And I think that having just one dashboard, like you said, and Mr. Godwin also mentioned, cannot be overemphasized. It reduces the risk of going to different places or being disturbed by so many people doing literally one job, if I'm allowed to even say that. So thank you very much for putting that out. Mrs. Adenike says, thank you for the response. All right, so now I'll be moving to Mr. Digban. I have a question for you, though it's a two-legged question, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on these. And the question is, how is AI, because I know that you work in technology, you talked about cybersecurity, you talked about SaaS, so it is still AI anyway. So how is AI transforming the traditional audit process, and what are the most practical use cases of risk-based auditing currently being adopted in Nigeria? And in addition to that, I would like to know the challenges that are associated with integrating AI tools into this process, because every good thing has its disadvantages, or everything that has an advantage has its disadvantages. So what are the risks associated with adopting or integrating AI and this kind of tools into the entire process of auditing and all the other things? If you get my question.
I think I got it to the point of where you talked about challenges. Let me start with one of the challenges of implementing AI, right? There's let me talk about implementation costs, right? Because it's technology, new technology. Sometimes these technologies can be really, really expensive to implement, especially for small businesses and medium scale and enterprises who are just trying to find their footing, or who have found their footing but trying to maintain a balance, right? Sometimes the cost can be really, really huge, and that can be very discouraging, right? And then apart from that, it is one thing to have technology. Is a more important thing to have people who can correctly use those technology. Because if I'm able to spend so much money on acquiring a software or a technology, and I don't have the requisite skill set, or I don't have people with the requisite skill set to use that technology, it's a waste. You understand? And then there's also the something I wrote here: cybersecurity and data integrity risks, right? So AI, right? I wrote here: AI requires broader access to sensitive financial data. AI requires broader access to sensitive financial data, increasing the attack surface for breaches, and stuff like that. So because of how AI operates, sometimes you have to feed it information. And if you don't give it enough information, it cannot give you what you want, right? So that exposes your business to certain kind of risks that and breaches, because you want to get the best out of AI, you have to feed it more. You have to give it a broader access to your financial data, right? And that in itself is a risk, because the more you give, the more AI has, and the more people can attack what AI knows, the more people can attack your business, your organization, because of how much information you had to put out. And then the resistance to change, that's another challenge. Resistance to change is, as a human being, first of all, most times people don't want to, they're used to something, they're comfortable with the way something works, they're comfortable with a system, they're comfortable with people, they're comfortable with how they've been doing things for, over the years. And then trying to introduce something new can be very, very difficult, because people really don't like change, right? There's a saying that if it is not broken, why fix it, right? So, I mean, even if we all know that it is to make the organization better, it is to make your workflows, your work processes better, but the very fact that it is a change from the norm, right, will bring some resistance. You get, so that those are some of the challenges and risks that are inherent, with implementing AI. And then let me just add this, because I have people here who have talked about tax and all that. So there's also regulatory and compliance issues. You understand? The use of AI in auditing, right, in maybe auditing and accounting and tax and all of that, is way ahead in some parts of the world. Mr. Dejobi talked about how there's the use of CRA in Canada and other parts. Let me just say this in passing. I don't know if this falls under policy change or regulatory improvement, but the issue where tax authorities in Nigeria want to send a letter or something to an organization, and they send it to a completely different address. So your company is located somewhere in mainland, but they want to send you a letter, and they send it to same name, same everything, but the address is to a different company entirely. That can cause issues, because when you then come to my office to say I sent you a letter, I can fight you literally and say you did not send me. I didn't receive anything from you. So why are you here? I recently experienced that, so it's still very fresh. Because so those are some of the issues that implementing AI and all of that can cause, and those are some of the
All
challenges
right.
that organizations have to try to overcome.
Interesting response and very, very qualitative stuff there. However, I think you based most of your responses to the latter part of the question, which was about the challenges. I'm still curious to know what your response is to the initial part of the question, which is how AI is transforming the traditional audit process, and what are the most practical use cases of these auditing tools currently, and how they've been adopted in Nigeria. I just very briefly, can you just give a response to that?
All right, let me just give just a response, two answers to that. So the first is enhanced fraud detection, right? You know, for humans, there's the human side of it. So when you try to deal with people, you realize, okay, you want to be human. You don't want this person to be too embarrassed or lose their jobs and stuff like that. But with AI is not human, even though it's humans that feed it information. But at the end of the day, it will do what you want it to do. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you tell it, when you find this, this is what you should do for me, you know, it's enhanced because I don't have to be the one to uh, um do what I don't have to be the one. I don't have to put myself in the position to detect that fraud, right? Even though at the end of the day, I'm still going to do it, but I'm not the one that people are seeing to be doing it. So it helps it helps with enhanced fraud detection. I don't know if that makes sense. Yes. And then
Yes, it
predictive
does
risk
make sense.
assessment. Okay, thank you. Predictive risk assessment. Now, because of how much information that's been put out into AI, right? It enhances its predictive analytics because it can then forecast potential financial risks by analyzing historical data. Because you need to know the past to be able to determine the future, right? So because of the information that AI has, it can help you to predict the risks that are inherent in your business based on history, based on historical data, right? This allows auditors and users of information to focus on high risk areas, right? So as to improve efficiency and the effectiveness of the organization's processes and all of that.
All right. I think that was very apt. Thank you very much for that. I think that it is great that we all begin to embrace and adopt this into our different dealings so that we don't get kicked off the wagon. Thank you very much again for that. So, Mr. Godwin, I'm coming to you with my next question. And again, please, I would like it that you buttress, but then please try to keep it succinct. So my first question to you is a two-let question again, like I gave to Mr. Digban. The question is, what are some best practices that companies can adopt to foster transparent and constructive relationship with tax authorities in Nigeria? And I know you mentioned something like that, but in a way that is actually very formal or official. What are some ways or best practices that companies can adopt to foster transparent and constructive relationships with tax authorities in Nigeria? And again, how can finance practitioners or personnel implement, what can it do to implement or minimize exposure to regulatory breaches, especially in a rapidly changing fiscal environment like Nigeria? How do they stay abreast with the changes and minimize certain risks? So it's a two-leg question rather for you. Please let me know if you get my question.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a great question. I quickly want to add to something that was asked earlier, a question that was asked, and the question was about a policy, like a bold policy that would kind of make Nigeria more business friendly. In addition to actually having a unified dashboard, we also have to have a nationwide payee revenue sharing formula, something that everybody agrees. And I am suggesting this because if we have an agreed national pay sharing formula that is going to be implemented on the proposed dashboard, then we would have less clashes with the state IRS. If you're doing business in the States, you know what I'm talking about. FIRS and SIRS always clashing over, who gets to collect the pay as you earn. So that's gonna, that's gonna die on arrival, because obviously now there is a sharing formula and everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to pay, even before they even set out of their house. And the issue of double remittance would immediately die. And of course, because it is transparent on the dashboard, you begin to see exactly what you are supposed to do, when you are supposed to do it, and what that's going to cost you, what that's going to take out of your of your pocket. All right, so Joma, you asked the question. You said, what are the best practices, that companies can adopt to foster relationships with tax authorities? If I get you correctly, that's your question, right?
Yes, that's one leg of the question.
Okay, that's the first question. I think the second question says, what can finance personnel do to minimize risk and stay abreast with change in the tax environment? Is that what you asked second time?
That's correct.
All right, okay, awesome. So let's talk about the best practices. Best practices actually change, depending on where you go to. And in order to foster a collaborative environment with FIRS specifically and SIRS, which is State Inland Revenue Service specifically, it is actually going to not only be relationship building, it is also strategic risk management. So best practices in this regard is reducing the amount of exposure that you have to these things. I want to also, remind us that regulators are not looking for perfect companies. They are looking for transparent and compliant companies. You don't have to have everything. You just have to be able to show everything, right? And the first, point I would mention is that companies need to have proactive behavior with tax authorities. Don't wait for anything. Don't wait for FIRS to reach out. In fact, make sure you are the one that reports before they even know you exist. Of course, they know you exist, but make sure you reach out before they reach out for anything. Make sure you reach out before they reach out. In fact, if you have any doubts about your tax position, ensure to reach them first. Proactive engagement allows you to create an avenue for communication. If you have to wait for an audit or a query or for anything like that, you're already too late. You've already gotten on their bad side, and it's not really something you want to be at, because at the end of the day, all of these things comes down to money. All of this thing comes down to you losing resources and accruing liabilities in the long run, right? So regular communication, regular reporting of your tax, regular auditing, just like my colleague has mentioned, auditing yourself, ensuring that you understand your numbers and you have the right documents before it is required is an effective, best practice you can actually adopt to build a relationship. Now, if you have that, it is important that you designate, a kind of, you have a relationship, right, with a tax authority. And this is where you have to really practice your communication skills. Now, if you're not in Nigeria, if you're not in the country of business, or if you're not in the state of business, this might look like a long shot. But what I've actually found doing business here is that sometimes you have to go guerrilla. You have to really go hands-on. Assigning somebody as, your liaison, somebody that is like a go-between your company and, the tax people, can really build a kind of institutional memory that allows you to really just reduce confusion and kind of cut off miscommunication. Because truly speaking, sometimes you are dealing with human beings. Everything you are saying, and you are writing and reading from a book doesn't end up that way when you actually meet with the consequences. I think it was a philosopher that said, no strategy survives contact with the enemy. The moment you actually enter into the field and start do business and your taxes and all of those things, you find out that the environment is saying something different. At that point, it now becomes a human relationship issue. You need to be able to kind of designate people, actual individuals, to work with you, to just create a liaison between your company, your business, and the bodies. And most of these people can even be staff in the companies. I'm not talking about bribe. I'm just saying get people to be your friend and get people you can actually call and let them tell you what next. Let them tell you, let them just be in the know of everything you are doing. Of course, I'm saying this because this is Nigeria we're talking about. We have to be proactive given the nature of our environment. The third one I would like to mention is that, we cannot overemphasize the need to maintain records. It has actually been said many times, but I'll just say it again, maintaining accurate records. is a best practice, not only for those people you are going to report to, but for yourself, so that you can know what you are supposed to do. It is even more important in countries like Nigeria, where we do a lot of estimated billing, right? There's templates for everything. People don't really care to know the detail. They just want to just throw a blanket template on everybody. But it doesn't work for you if you're actually going to lose a lot, given the template. So, yeah. And if you look at, when we talk about building relationships, it is really important to understand that at the end of the day, we are dealing with people. Tax authorities have people who are, they are peopled by individuals, and understanding that the laws are applicable, but they're only applicable to the extent of the implementation. So do everything you can do to stay compliant, but also build relationships with individuals that can help you interpret those things and further them. If tax people want to frustrate you, they will frustrate you, right? If you're not an auditor and you try to go to, the office and try to get some information, you might spend weeks trying to get out something, just a very tiny piece of information that can help you, right? And at that point, you need to understand that somebody is asking you to talk to them. Somebody is just trying to see if you are able to be gritty enough or smart enough to just, make a phone call and tell them, please, this is what I need. Can you work with us? Can you, my company needs this. Can you come and be our person here and there and there and there? And then eventually you're able to get in and, get more information. Of course, you have to understand that many of these things are not, they're not the best, they're not the way they're supposed to be. But if you really want to make, your business stand on the right side and you just reduce a lot of liabilities, you need to understand that these individuals, have a way of communicating, and you need to be able to communicate with them that way. Of course, we might want to go on the internet and, rant and be angry and all of those things, that things are not getting done properly. But if you really want to get things done, you just need to understand the body language of these institutions. All right, so so whenever you are in dispute, I think it is also important to involve lawyers, right? So I always tell people that there are places you can't go to. There are languages you can't really understand, except you engage professionals. So I am appealing to people in business, people who are into supply, distribution, marketing, manufacturing. Please engage lawyers, local lawyers that know the environment, to help you get around, all right, to avoid frustration. One of the biggest resources you can lose is time. To get lawyers who understand the environment, who has worked with these agencies, to actually help you get access to information. Information is the key in this business, right? Knowing what's going to happen next. Knowing what's going to happen next month, right? There are times when there are loopholes. I'll give an example of something that happened in Abuja, and this is not tax related, but this is actually like in real estate, right? So a lot of properties were revoked in Abuja. I'm talking about thousands of hectares of land, and these were in choice areas like Asokoro. And what was the reason why they were revoked? The people that signed that document were acting on behalf of a minister, and it was revoked because the new minister that came in did not recognize those people, and he said he doesn't know them, and they did not have the power to sign on behalf of a minister that had left. So those people who actually bought those properties have to go to court now. They have to, wait for a judgment, and then they will have to wait for an appeal, and then it probably goes to Supreme Court, and all this time is going, and you're losing the time value of that money. And of course, you could have avoided this by really understanding how land administration works. And this is exactly the same thing that works with tax. All right. So let me go to the second question, which is how can finance persons or personnel minimize risk and stay abreast with change? How can we stay ahead of the change? Let me put it that way. Okay. So let me say that, as a finance person, your role has evolved from just being a bookkeeper. The role has evolved from just being a bookkeeper or somebody who just understands the numbers. You are now a compliance person, right? You're more like a strategic partner now in navigating a company's risk or volatility and understanding regulation. So in Nigeria, where there is we have an environment of constant shifts in policy. You can wake up tomorrow and then the price of fuel is maybe 300%, more expensive than it was yesterday. and then you've predicated your whole business model on the price of fuel being at a certain price, being at a certain range, what do you do, right? So understanding that the constant policy shifts in Nigeria, it's kind of we say follow come. Your job is to ensure that the company survives. So what do you do to stay abreast? The first thing you need to do is to embrace it, embrace the constant, regulatory change, and be intelligent to understand that in Nigeria, fiscal policies can change given the changes or the rather volatile changes in the political environment. So fiscal policies can change at any time. So when you're making plans, make plans with plan B and plan C and plan D, right? If you're in a country or in a jurisdiction that has, a rather static or fixed policies for decades, you can actually set up plans and, just have just a few backups. But in Nigeria, you need to have totally different plans for different outcomes, so you don't get stuck, with a new change and, get wiped out of business. Of course, these changes can actually come, these, shifts can come in form of VAT rules. CBN can wake up tomorrow and just make a new VAT. They can change interest rates. A circular can just make a new foreign exchange reform, and, you have to stay abreast with all of that. So what do? You have to subscribe, listen, watch, find out what SEC is doing. I think these days they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're talking about their new circulars. If you are around them enough, you find out that SEC has new policies. They have a lot of things they're doing with banks these days. They have consolidation measures and all of those things. There are programs. As a finance person, I expect that you are listening to or watching Nairametrics. And Nairametrics is a blog. I don't think if you're a finance person and you don't follow Nairametrics, I don't know what you're really doing with your life, right? You need to follow Nairametrics to really understand what is happening in the finance environment. Ugo Dre is really doing well. Of course, there's Proscia and other blogs like that. And of course, you can sign up for webinars with NESG, Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Attend their conferences and meet with policy makers. Actually meet with them, engage with them, and ask them questions. Right? These forums actually exist. A lot of people don't know that they exist. A lot of people just think that some people are just making policies and they don't know what's happening. They actually invite people to their activities, right? They have all these activities where policymakers argue, right? I have a friend called Yemi Seychelles. She was actually one of those people at NESG I think maybe a year ago or two. And, these things are actually open to young people to attend. They won't actually ask you to buy tickets. And if you are interested enough, I think it's great for you to actually pay for those things, to be among them as a finance person. Then, of course, you can develop a lot of interest in, data tools. As a finance person, Excel is your best friend, yes, right? But tools like QuickBooks, Sage, Zoho, and all of those things can really help you get involved with the AI revolution, just like my friend over there is talking about, with ERP systems and software that does payroll and calculators that do tax and all of those things. You can really stay ahead of the curve in the tech aspect. So it's not just about building relationships or getting information. It's about refining your skills and being able to communicate with the changing environment. Because the truth is, every company in the future, think about it, in 100 years, every company would have a tech-enabled aspect of them if they're not fully tech. And that means that a lot of accounting will be done in tech, a lot of finance will be done in tech, in the AI, in the Web3 and all of that. So I think that's what I want to say now. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. That was so all-encompassing, very important. And I think that this is not inconsequential to we regular citizens that are not even financial practitioners, because I follow Nairametrics, I follow the new podcasts and NESG as well. It just keeps you abreast so that you know what's happening. It's not like they just come to say, oh, there's tariff here today. Like, when? Why? They just increased tariff yesterday and then there's another tariff today. So it's good for you as citizens. Let me not say normal citizens because we're all not very normal, but as citizens of the country, let us just always try to stay abreast with everything happening in our country. So I think that was really really very important, and you really spread far around the subject. Thank you very much for that response. So, Mr. Jobi, I'm coming to you now with the last question, which is also going to be two-pronged. And afterwards, we'll just take last or closing remarks from the three of you, and then we call it a day. We have overshot our time, but it's been a time well spent. I've learned a lot myself. So thank you very much, Mr. Jobi, because you've worked in, okay, I can't say you've worked in different countries, but I know that you talked about doing business in Nigeria and now you're in Canada. So I want to expand the view a bit to the best, the global best practices and proactive learning. So my question to you is this: what I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
I can hear you now, but I didn't hear anything.
All right, thank you very much. I had an interference, but I'm back now. So my question again to you was, what global compliance trends should Nigerian businesses be watching, and how can they stay ahead instead of playing catch up? Mr. Godwin just talked about how financial practitioners can stay abreast with the constantly evolving policies and trends in the industry. But now this is more like a global perspective to it. So I'd like to get your thoughts. But then very closely tied to that, I would like to know, this is my question to you. With tax regulations constantly evolving, how can businesses in Nigeria design compliance strategies that aren't outdated in 12 months due to the constant evolution? How can they continuously stay relevant or stay abreast with the regulations in the sector? I want to believe you got to my two questions.
Repeat the second one.
All right. So then the second question says, with tax regulations constantly evolving, how can businesses in Nigeria design compliance strategies that aren't outdated in 12 months? That's in 1 year.
Okay. For the first question, in aligning with international best practices, then I think businesses that intend to trade internationally should also begin to monitor how things are done, internationally. So things around taxes by Bloomberg, or sites like taxfoundation.org, or will give you insights on how solutions can be brought up that can prefer solutions to harmonization, taxation harmonization, digital services harmonization, automated exchange systems, things that would actually remove or mitigate all those things that are currently causing the problems in Nigeria as we speak. Things that would educate us on how other countries are effectively things that they're adopting to remove all those risks of double taxation, to remove the risk of not being transparent, to remove the risk of corruption, generally, to remove the risk of to bring up transparency in business, in beneficial ownership transparency. Let me put it that way, where it's a win-win, both ends. It's that way those kind of trends would significantly improve capacity building, in tax administration, in what countries should be investing in. They should also be investing in technology infrastructure development or investment. So they are putting in money into fiscal stuff, into landed stuff, into things that you can see. The company or the tax companies or the tax giants in Nigeria should also be willing to invest into non-physical softwares, non-physical control measures that can help harmonize and show, harmonize that space. And then on the second question, I would still say, the world has moved from brick and mortar to being digital. And if for any reason one has to adopt something that can stay or stand some test of time and can stay in a secure place that won't be burnt or won't be, obviously there's no, in as much as there's also the risk of being exposed to some other forms of, where you have to put in some other layer of security measures. It's good to establish Nigerian businesses can establish or can establish a dedicated tax monitoring system, or get some software that can help them, that can help digitize their books, that can help showcase their records in soft copy, that can help, where it's also reachable, such that anybody pops into me now and says, oh, this is this is that, I just reach out to by just putting in a password, or I get access and I'm able to show that I'm compliant. Digital tax platforms. There's I think there's Anderson and .ng. Well, I don't know if it's .ng or .com. These are digital tax platforms that one can also leverage on. And then Mr. Godwin spoke about professional advisory relationships. Now, see, it's very important. I'm a doctor. I practice as a doctor, as a surgeon in Nigeria for about 13 years. I did it in such a way that, I was always constantly in touch with my lawyer and in touch with my accountant. The way it is where you have a house and you're constantly being told that, look, man, there are certain people you don't owe. You don't owe your gate man, you don't owe your cook, you don't owe your housemaid. It's because these guys are practically people that are in the gateway of your home. So like the same way in business, if you have a business and you are just running, okay, maybe because you started as a sole proprietor, fine. At that start, look, those people that you call your friends, that are lawyers, people on this group that are accountants, that are tax, that are auditors. See, on a friendship, or just on friend. See, this is what I'm starting. I would like to have you on board or on my advisory board. I know I may not be able to pay you now. We can work out something, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's still going to be a win-win. Please establish professional advisory relationships. Things that you can't see, those professionals can see them. And, you can monitor legislative developments, what is going on in the House, in the policies, what policies have changed, or what policies is about to change. Who just moved one policy yesterday that is going to undermine your current business structure, and you can continuously, join master classes that will keep you abreast, keep you updated, continuous education, invest in tax training for either your staff, your finance staff, your accounting staff, and because by implementing these approaches, you're keeping yourself abreast within the Nigerian space, and then you're also keeping yourself informed of what is going on internationally. You're monitoring global tax initiatives like the OECD, two-pillar solution. Nigeria is even likely to adopt that, and follow developments in digital taxation as such that as changes are happening, you're abreast, you know what is going on, and in that way you're also able to ascertain your authority within that particular part of the structure and implement it with your business.
Whoa, what can I say? This has really been nice. Thank you very much, sir, for that. I wouldn't have imagined that you were a medical doctor. When I saw doctor, I thought it's a PhD doctor, but I didn't know you were a medical doctor, and I'm sure you are a doctor of philosophy as well. Thank you very much, sir, for your thoughts. Thank you, everybody that joined in. We are really constrained with time. However, I just want each speaker to take 30 seconds, please. I know it's not possible, but 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Just give a closing statement or rounding up comment about this whole conversation that we've had to maybe aspiring financial practitioners or financial practitioners right now on how to navigate the fiscal policy or landscape in Nigeria and how to really project for their future in the space. So I'll start with you, Mr. Ogenerume Digban. Very quickly, please just give a closing remark, and then Mr. Godwin, and again, Dr. Joby. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Chama. Thank you, Mr. Godwin. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Dijobi. Right. I would say that I personally have learned a lot from all that you have said. And I think it's very important to also note that it is not very difficult, right? It's just about having and knowing the right people in the right places, right? It's not because you need to bribe them or anything, but so that you can get as much information as you need or as you can to help your business or to help your finances, right? Because otherwise you would just you would find out that you're just going around and in circles and nothing's happening. So it's very important to get information, right? Because it's one of the best ways to grow your finances, to grow your business, and as a person. So yeah, thank you very much for this session.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I've also learned a lot from you and from every other speaker. All right, Mr. Godwin, 30 to 45 seconds, your closing remark.
All right, so I would like to say that if you're doing business, please employ or hire professionals in the industry, right? Work with people that have been there, work with those that you can get advice from. Don't take it for granted, right? Just try to make sure you are with people that understand the ecosystem. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much as well. Learned a lot from you too. All right, now Dr. Adejobi, your closing remark in 45 seconds.
I'll say Nigeria's complex business landscape, working in that space, strategic tax planning is not just about compliance. It's a competitive advantage. Every naira, every kobo legitimately saved becomes a reinvestment. At some point you need to reinvest it into your vision, into your business. So whatever knowledge you've gained today, it actually transforms a burden, an administrative burden on you to leverage it as a business opportunity, into your business structure. So I would say you should go forward confidently. Feel free to call somebody in your church, your mosque, your whatever, in your community, and ask questions, glean, knowing that proper tax management doesn't just protect your startup, doesn't just protect your business. It fuels Nigeria's economic future that we're trying to build together, and obviously it projects your business as a global business.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Adejobi. Thank you very much, Mr. Ogenerume Digban. Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin Adoga. We totally appreciate your input. This session or conference wouldn't have been possible without you. And we thank you very much for not gatekeeping. You really shared a lot. And for those people that were taking notes, I know your notepad is already almost full. There's been a lot to learn. Thank you very, very much. Again, this is the first edition of this virtual conference. And I mentioned earlier that this was put together by iTele Media, and as the year runs, we'll continue to have more sessions, and we want to collaborate with you or with somebody else that you know would like to partner with you to have this done in bigger scales to impact more people. And it's not going to be always about finance. It's going to cut across different facets of life, and would like to see everybody that joined in. So again, I would like to appreciate everybody that joined in here from whichever part of the world you are. Thank you very much to my fellow team members here and to team members that worked together to put this together. We totally appreciate. This has been great. And again, about iTele Media, I already mentioned that it is your one-stop shop for everything media. We do broadcasting, we have our indigenous or company programs where we talk about different things, whether politics, whether fashion, whether entertainment, whatever, you just name it. And so we can work with you to cover your event, to give your brand story and help tell your story to the world in the way that it should best be communicated. So we totally appreciate every single person, especially people that joined in here as soon as this started up until this moment. We totally appreciate, and we hope that this was worth your while and that your Saturday makes more sense because you joined this event today. Thank you very much again. My name again is Chioma Otie, and it was great doing this. I had mentioned earlier that we drop our emails in the comment section to the participants so that we continue to communicate with you on future activities from the organization, and would love to do that. So please, in a minute or two, try to keep your emails, just copy them, paste them on the comment section so that my team members can get them, and we'll keep up with you. Thank you very much, everybody. We totally appreciate your input in different ways. To everybody that asked questions, your questions were really, really important and made this conversation much more enriching. So we totally appreciate everything. It was great moderating this, and I look forward to further communications with both the speakers and the participants here. And I think you can also follow our speakers on social media if you're active, if you want to know more about what they do, and keep up with maybe communication or partner with them or work with them or invite them to your events in whichever way. That's the thing. We are here for collaboration and not competition. So yeah, that's just it. I'm trying to buy time so that you can all drop your emails. I can see one. Please drop your email so that we can keep conversing with you via emails and keep you abreast on updates from the organization. Yeah, I totally hope that you have the best day ahead, and do enjoy yourself. Have a great day ahead. With that, we've come to the end of the Economic Summit 2025 theme, navigating the fiscal landscape in Nigeria, and majorly we talked about taxation and all of that. It was really worth my while. I learned a lot, and I cannot wait to start implementing in my own little way, as I am not a professional in the financial space. Well, I learned a lot. Thank you very much to everybody again. And I think that would be it for today. There weren't a lot of emails dropped, but okay, I still see some emails coming in, especially the participants. Would like to have you on our future activities, so would really appreciate it. And you can follow us across all our social media platforms. Yes, I almost forgot to mention that. Follow us across our social media platforms at iTele Media. So iTele Media on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on TikTok, on all of them, X, all of them. We are everywhere. Feel free to follow us, even on YouTube. Yes, you can follow us and see some of our content. Thank you very much again, and do have the best rest of day. Bye for now.